Okay. Why? How have I been playing this level this long? This is stupid. It should not take this long to beat this level. It's not that bad. Like, the gameplay itself is not actually that bad. There's a lot of bugs that I'm encountering, but, like, in theory, the gameplay isn't that bad. Okay, now for the really tricky part. Hey, I did it. Get another chance at the end. And I didn't bug. Let's go. Okay. This level has been such a pain in the butt. Such an incredible pain in the butt. It is a lottery that requires skill to even play. It is such a massive pain in the butt. Like, it's so random. There's a bug at 94, right? So, and there's several other bugs in this level, but 94 is especially bad because, you know, for whatever reason, that half block can trip you up. It's very specific the way that timing works. I'm not entirely sure what you need to do, what you need to avoid, but, you know, essentially you've got like a timing that gives you like 4 frames or something. You know, it's the type of thing where, you know, you've just come out from underneath a spike and there's a spike right in front of you and you've got one block of clearance, one block of horizontal clearance to work with, right? So, you know, you got like a few frames at best, and somehow like one of those frames, I guess, is bad, and you interact with the object poorly and die on the gravity portal, because then it just drops you and you hit the object instead of landing on it, and it's like, seriously, why is this bug so far in the level? And then there's plenty of other bugs that I've been dealing with. Some of them are input related and not necessarily the level's fault, but yeah, really hate this thing actually. I doubled my attempts on it, so I had 422 old attempts. So to get this, I had to put in 434 new attempts, which is a lot. It shouldn't take that much, seriously. Like, you know, I'm decent, right? I expected to do this in like 200, not 400, but whatever. Really sucks that this level is so buggy, and you know, I'm not even complaining about the ball part. My goodness, like I almost never died there in normal mode. It was a pain in the butt in practice mode, but normal mode, yeah, I just got lucky every time. Not so lucky in the other parts though. Anyway, yeah, at this point, I think it's safe to call it a hard demon, so let's go with that. GG, finally. Good enough. Alright, so I think I owe you guys an explanation about the old attempts and the old progress, because if you saw my last video on Demon Machine, then you're probably wondering about that. So, here's the thing. I originally played this level way back in, what is it, 2018, I guess? Yeah, I guess 2018. It's not too long ago, but anyway. So probably like late 2018 or so, I played this level, and what ended up happening was I found out it was impossible on 60 Hz, so that's number one. And number two, I thought, hey, let's go beat it on 120. And I died at 94, as you could see from the last video. And at that point, I kind of thought, you know what? It wouldn't be fair if I beat this on 120, because all the 60 hertz players out there, and probably even the mobile players out there, they could play this and they could never beat it because of the bug. Pauze has fixed that bug, so now that's not an issue, and I can just beat it on 60 hertz. But it also got me thinking, and I had this thought before, but it just didn't dawn on me in the moment. You know what? If I beat something on 120 hertz, I've been playing with an advantage. That's why I had been playing on 60 hertz up to that point, instead of using my 120 hertz screen and making everything easier. And I didn't want to be unfair in that sort of sense. Now, a lot of people are like, well, you're playing on PC, that's unfair, right? You've got a dedicated GPU, that's unfair. All these different things, right? So the fact is, life isn't fair. But if you think about what the usual paradigms are for a game and fairness, what usually affects a game, right? What normally affects a game is the hardware inside your computer, right? So that's your FPS. And it's actually not just like that, right? It's the amount of graphical compute that you have, not necessarily your display. It's the graphical, it's the amount of compute power that you have, whether that's integrated graphics or your GPU or what have you. Right, so it's computer performance that affects frame rate. A lot of games actually, I wouldn't say most games, but I know a lot of games use frame rate for their physics calculations. GD is no exception. And that's just, variable depending on whatever the game is doing, whatever settings you have, like maybe you've put a frame rate limit on it. And then of course, how much computing power you actually have to put towards that, right? So that's the normal paradigm. For a lot of games. The other thing that you also have is input device. So, mouse, keyboard, controller, that will affect your performance in a game oftentimes. And then the other things that you typically see are platform. So sometimes, alright, so platform, obviously, that's going to change your input device. That's probably going to change the amount of computing power that you have on hand. But the other thing that platform might do is it might introduce slight differences in how the game actually works, because typically, for one reason or another, like it's either like a different development kit that they're using because you have to make it work on a special platform, or it's you're going from like x86, an Intel or AMD processor, to an ARM processor, and so it's compiled down into a completely different set of machine instructions, right? Because the game's source code, it gets run through a compiler that translates that human-readable source code into computer-readable code, and that computer-readable code looks completely different from machine to machine. It's actually gonna be somewhat similar between machines that are of the same family. So that would be all your desktop and laptop computers up until recently. Anything that's running an Intel or AMD processor, that's what we call CISC or x86, and those instructions will look a certain way, whereas the RISC instructions that you find on ARM CPUs, so those are the CPUs inside of mobile devices like phones, tablets, the Apple M1 laptops, right? All of those things use an ARM CPU. They have a completely different set of instructions, and so between those, or just between using different development tools between platforms, like let's say PlayStation versus PC, I would expect there to be differences between the platforms, right? That's perfectly normal. So input devices, graphical compute, and platform, those are all perfectly normal things to change the way a game works. And a display, that would change how long it takes for light to reach your eyes, right? Or how quickly the display updates so that you can have the most up-to-date information, which is really a difference on the order of milliseconds. But also you get the smoother picture, so that's kind of nice. But anyway, that's usually where the display comes in. It's just like this very cosmetic type of thing, very minor influence on a game. You know, for GD, like, you would expect the display to have, besides the smoothness, pretty much no effect, because you're not playing against other people, right? You don't have these, like, knee-jerk reactions. Well, knee-jerk is not the right word. You know, fast twitch reactions to things that you might have in, like, a shooter game or even Minecraft PvP. Instead, you are learning a level and you are developing muscle memory. And yeah, it might help like once or twice. It might save your butt once or twice in a level that you're sight reading and you haven't seen before, or you just kind of lost focus and you have to sight read really quick. You know, a few milliseconds, that might actually change something there. But by and large, you know, not your FPS, but your refresh rate, that shouldn't change anything. But in Geometry Dash, because of the way Rob got this thing set up, the game can either run at 60 frames per second, or it can run, or try to run, at an FPS that matches your refresh rate. And that will increase your FPS. So by that reasoning, a high refresh rate display, for no other reason than the game is just programmed badly, makes the game way easier, because like a lot of other games, it's calculating those physics checks on each frame. So instead of it being based on a much more gradually inclining platform of graphics compute, it's based on literally what your monitor is rated to do. And you know, that makes the game really unfair in some ways, because you know, it's not just, oh well, you could, you know, do some things to try and optimize your performance. You actually need a whole other display, or you have to do some monkey business and trick it into using a different display, or as a lot of players have done, you just use an external program that modifies the game and lets it run at whatever FPS you want. So, you know, looking at that, it's like, I don't want to be a part of that, right? I don't want to take advantage of that sort of stuff just because I have a 120 hertz screen. You know, I got that because I'm like, oh hey, that'll be pretty cool for testing purposes and trying stuff out, and it's been fun. You know, I've played some challenges with it. I've tried it out on a few things here and there, tested bugs. You know, practiced Bloodbath, that's more recently. So, you know, I feel like I've gotten my money's worth out of that. You know, given that this was actually a steal on eBay, it's not like I can really say very much about getting my quote-unquote money's worth out of it, because this whole laptop was quite a steal. But anyway, now that's kind of the point there. So I don't want to be a part of this weird taking advantage of the game's bad design to make something that has never been overpowered and make it overpowered for a game that it really should not affect very much. And so that's just kind of where I'm at. As far as like what is cheating, what isn't, hardware and software both cheat. If you've ever heard of a Game Genie, yep, that's a hardware cheat engine. And when I say cheat engine, I actually mean like cheat engine. Like the actual cheat engine, it lets you like find values in RAM and modify them and stuff. I played around. I looked at it and played around with it for a second because I thought, maybe I could get my password out of the Geometry Dash 1.9 private server, because my laptop's battery died while I was setting up the password on that thing, and so it didn't actually save in my password manager. So I was trying to recover that, and I failed miserably. But that's a whole other story. But I've uninstalled that since then. Anyway, the way that thing works is it doesn't actually like do anything to the game unless you turn on speed hack on it. But you know, the main point of it is that you can go find values in RAM and change them. And that's the whole idea behind a Game Genie. You put in some codes, and it will change values in RAM and make the game behave differently. So that's the whole idea behind hardware-based cheating, and software is really no different. And maybe that's how hardware-based cheating has worked, but you've also got the peripherals that give an advantage, and in some cases they give an advantage in a way that they shouldn't, and that's the display type of thing here. So anyway, I've been going on for a long time about this. I feel like I've done at least a reasonable job of providing an explanation for why I'm sticking to 60 hertz. It's because a display should not be having that kind of effect on the game. It should be based on settings and the actual amount of computing power that your system has available, and that's that's entirely dependent on the chip that you have, and there's a wide range of different chips. It shouldn't be just the spec of your display, whether it can do 120, 144, 240 hertz, whatever. That's just weird, right? Completely goes against the usual paradigm. So, even though I don't want to be somebody who takes advantage of that, because that feels kind of scummy to me, there are people out there who don't have the hardware, and they don't want to use FPS bypass, and I completely respect that decision. I applaud them for that. And so, why should I take advantage of this weird design in the game that makes a high refresh rate monitor overpowered? That doesn't seem right to me, for me to do that. Other people, they can decide that how they want. The community is really in charge of what flies here. But for me personally, that does not leave the right taste in my mouth. So that's why I don't do that. Alright, so we've been here long enough. I've explained it probably like 3 times at this point. Hopefully this last one was the clearest. And this level is finally done. This video is finally done. Swiftness I'm not going to do now. Demon Attack is next. Space Travel is still impossible. And this is the next oldest demon I haven't done. So let's call it a night. Or I'll beat another level, but call it a day. This video's gone on long enough. Thanks for watching. Bye.